Welcome back to Ireland AM from daytime television to the world of reality TV. Our next guest has experienced the best and worst of both worlds.
Yes, here to take us through her weird and wonderful career on screen is journalist, presenter and now author, Steph McGovern. Good morning to you, Steph. Great to have you with us this morning.
Oh, thank you so much, guys, for having me. It looks so lovely where you are. It's like, honestly, I'm sweating so much at the minute.
Our fake sun inside our fake studio is doing great work today.
How are you? Congratulations! Like you've obviously the telly, Masked Singer, reality television as well with Bear Grylls. You have the podcast, but author. Tell us about the author. You have a new book out.
Yeah, so this came about really randomly. So I'm like a massive crime fiction fan. I read loads of books all the time. I love people like Harlan Coben. And I love the way he does the whole, like, what if you're in like a normal situation to you, but something mad happens, something extraordinary. So I used to do that on broadcasts all the time. I don't know if you two ever do this, but I used to sit on broadcasts and I'd say to the team, what would we do if this got hijacked? Like, because often I'd be out and about, I'd be in a field somewhere, I'd be in random locations, and I just used to sit there and go, what would we do? And I used to ask everyone around me, and everyone would have like a different way of reacting, and I just thought, that's so interesting. And so I just collected all these ideas about it, and then that's kind of where it all started.
And this is your debut crime fiction. It's called Deadline. It's amazing reading it as someone who works in the telly industry.
I have got my hiding place just in behind here.
Have you?
Wow.
Just behind the sofa.
He hasn't told any of us that. So the way you set this up is it's so true to life of what it's like, early morning broadcasts like our Derek going out. So tell us about who the story is about and what it hinges on.
Yeah, so it's about a reporter who's live on air. She's in the middle of one of like the biggest interviews of her career, and millions of people are watching at home. And she's in this factory as well. So she's in a super secure money printing factory, and she's there. She's in the middle of the interview, and then she's told in her ear that her wife and her child have been kidnapped, and she has to do everything the hijacker's saying in order to keep her family safe. So this all happens over like 20 minutes of this live television interview, and it's like why and who, and then the story takes you back to different points and different characters' lives, and it's the stuff about terrorism, about grooming, about political corruption, about stalking, and so all of these different things feed through as you try and work out who is doing this, why are they making her ask these questions, and like how's it all going to end?
Wow.
No, it is. It's amazing because as you mentioned there, you fit on every major fear that people, have themselves, because as you're trying to figure it out, who is doing this and who is pulling the strings, you have a lot of the misdirection going. So for you, did you always, because I'm always wondering with authors, did you know how it was going to end and work your way back? Or did you kind of change your mind who the baddie was throughout?
Yeah, so this is really interesting, Mike, because I've interviewed a lot of authors and never understood the ones who don't know, like, what the end is. But I actually didn't in this. I knew it was a hijack, but I didn't know why or who'd done it until I actually started writing the characters. And it changed about 3 times, the reason for the hijack. To be fair, this took me about 5 years to write because I was, I started it in lockdown when I'd had my little girl and suddenly ended up doing a TV show from my house. Like we all became broadcasters from home, whatever your job was, you were doing Zooms from home. And so in that madness, I started writing as a kind of way to keep sane. Like while everyone was making banana bread, I was like, murdering people fictionally, which sounds dark. But that was my way of like coping. So at that beginning point, I didn't know about why the hijack was happening. I just thought, I'll just write it and see where my characters take me. And it did change a couple of times. And that's been the wild thing is actually thinking, your characters can take you to the place at the end and you don't have to know it all at the beginning.
It's really interesting because, like, you didn't start at journalism. Obviously, you started off at BBC Breakfast, but like you were in engineering and kind of science, and that's how you got into television in the first place. So writing a book then into that is amazing. Talk to us about how you got into BBC Breakfast and then into television. Like, was Was it the dream growing up, or where did it come from?
Well, and I don't know if you felt like this. Like when I was a kid, I did want to be Richard and Judy, like both of them, obviously. And but I never saw a way in for me, really. Not in a big negative, sad way, but just I didn't know anyone in that world, and I didn't know how to get into it. So I always like secretly thought, oh, I'd love to do that job, but I just never thought it'd happen. In the meantime, I grew up in a place in the northeast of England, which is like heavy industry. I could see that the jobs were in engineering. Our school was really good at like helping us on that front. And I just thought, and at that point, they wanted to get more women into engineering. I really loved it. And so, yeah, that was the route I was doing. And then I started to win like awards for what I was working for Black & Decker, make the power tools, and in Durham. And it went really well. And then I started to get asked to go on to shows to talk about being a woman in engineering. And so then, and one of those shows was on Radio 4, and then I basically stalked them until they gave me a job.
Well done. When you're like, token woman gets me to my dream job. I love it. It's fantastic. But your whole career, we know you from BBC Breakfast. I adored Steph's packed lunch. It was such a joy. And now, like Steph, you're so trusted when it comes to like engineering, and All About the Rest is Money is your podcast, which you're doing at the moment. How are you finding that? Because it's all about the financial world and how it affects politics and all of our pockets. How are you? Because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so you're right. It's so this is a show I co-host with Robert Peston, who's obviously ITV's political editor. Him and I used to work together in the Credit Crunch show back in 2008, when we were all talking about the Celtic Tiger and everything else that was going on with the economy across the world. Him and I was his producer back then. And so then when things started to go a bit like wild, like last year, him and I were like, we should do something. Podcasts seem to be where a lot of people are getting their information from now. And so we kind of see it. We have 2 episodes a week, and we just see it as a place to just tell you what's going on behind the headlines. Yeah. And, when we're talking about the Chancellor in the UK having this fiscal headroom, what the hell is fiscal headroom, and why does it matter, and why are they all banging on about it? So I think, again, it's like storytelling in a book. I see it as it's my job to break down complex things, and just so people can understand it, so people can go, oh, right. And this is why I should care.
So what is going on at the minute? Because across the English headlines at the minute, it's Rachel Reeves crying.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real mess, isn't it? And it's a mess because the government, when they got into power, had this manifesto which they're trying to stick to, which is just creating an absolute headache for them, because everyone's disagreeing over whether they should stick to what are these fiscal rules, these rules that you should only spend on day-to-day spending on things, the money that comes in from your tax revenue, so the money that you get in from everyone paying tax, and you shouldn't borrow money to pay for day-to-day spending. And that's the big problem here, is we're borrowing in the UK tons of money still to pay for just the day-to-day things, not for investing. So she's stuck in this place trying to work out how. She's really adamant she wants to stick to these rules, because if she doesn't, there's a potential the financial markets will go, hang on a minute, how are you going to afford things if you don't stick to it? And that can affect then how much money the government can borrow to do it. So it's like a really niche, like fiscal rules thing.
It is, but the
upshot is...
the story has become, unfortunately, and we saw it with the markets yesterday. Rachel Reeves, she cried inside the chamber yesterday. I don't know about you, but when I'm under that sort of pressure, it just comes out of my eyes. I'm not upset, but it just comes out of my eyes. And that's become the story. What do you make of that? Like, not the financial collapse, that's the story.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, I'm the same as you, Mara. I cry regularly. I cry if people are nice to me. I cry when things are hard. So, I can see both sides of this, though, because it is terrible that she was crying, and I really felt for her in that moment. But there's also been a lot of disabled people who are really panicking about whether they're going to lose their benefits, who I'm sure have been crying too. We just don't see that publicly. So I when you take on a job like that, unfortunately, it comes with such a level of scrutiny that you will get talked about on whatever emotion you show. And I'm not saying that's right, because I think it's, you know, the pictures are in the papers. We'll follow her around now for the rest of her life. And I think that's really rubbish, especially because she's the first female chancellor we've ever had in the UK for like 800 years. And if I was a young woman watching that, I'd be thinking, well, I don't want to do that job, because why would I put myself through that? I mean, you know, we've all of that pressure. But on the other hand, she is in charge of the country's money. And there's a lot of people who are in real hardship and are thinking, well, fair enough, you're crying, but I might not be able to afford to eat next week.
Yeah.
So it's a really messy situation, which isn't good for anyone.
It's not good for anyone, but it's great for your podcast because people love to tune in to find out more about it.
It's so true, though. Bad things always seem to be like the good stuff we talk about. It's terrible.
Listen, Steph, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Congratulations on the new book. It is, of course, called Deadline.
Thank
It's
you.
available now. And well done on everything that you're doing at the minute.
Can I show you one thing before I go? Look at my feet, because while you were talking about not wearing your socks during work,
Come
I'm
on.
really sorry.
Hey! Oh my God, put some socks on. Jeez, we don't need to see that in morning breakfast. People are having their cornflakes.
Lily Allen on Only Feet. Watch Steph McGovern fly up the Only Feet charts. Steph, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks a million.
See you later.
Irish dancing feet they are.
They
Fair
are
play.
indeed.